Hey guys, I'm going to share my screen. I'm excited to go over a presentation with you today on perimenopause. As I open up this presentation, maybe you're not in perimenopause, maybe you don't know, but all the information provided can be very educational, help you be on the lookout of what to expect or kind of look for, and also knowing what solutions and resources you can have at your fingertips. So let me present here. Let's present. And let's begin. So I'm going to actually just my Zoom stuff. I feel like that's in my way. I'm not sure what's expressing itself for the recording, but 3 game-changing strategies for your success. Out of the gate, I just have a disclaimer here. Know that I'm not your doctor. Don't do anything or take anything without, having a conversation with a health practitioner and yeah, so that's my disclaimer. For my agenda, we're just going to go over what is perimenopause. I do feel like it's more known today, but I'll make sure that I address it. Signs of hormone imbalance, root causes of hormone imbalance. Of course, it is natural and healthy for our hormones to drop off as we get closer to menopause, but the hormonal or drastic shifts is not. And there's things that we can do about it, but knowing what the drivers of the root cause of imbalance may be can be helpful. And then I'll end with the bulk of today's talk about strategies and symptoms for perimenopause and weight loss. And when I say weight loss, I'm also talking about a number of things. I'm talking about overall health. I'm thinking of your brain. I'm thinking of your bones. I'm thinking of your lean body mass, how you feel, your mindset, and so much more. So let's begin. Overall, I'm Kelly Schmidt. For those who may not know me, I'm a registered dietitian. I've been type 1 since 1991. So coming up in 3 weeks, it'll be 34 years. 34 years I have had type 1 diabetes, and you may think my passion of nutrition comes from my autoimmune disease, and it does. But a lot of my fire, my desire to keep getting better and being more curious and helping people with more empathy and strategy comes from witnessing my dad and his health journey. He also has type 1 diabetes, but he has run into every complication from the disease, and it's pretty hard. But I believe using food as medicine and our voice to advocate what we may need for our health can go a long way and help all of us defy the odds. Let that be someone else with type 1 diabetes and autoimmune risk, but also women in today's day and age from having big shifts in hormones. There are solutions, there are remedies, and there is new breaking research to help us. So besides talking about myself, I included a testimonial here. Overall, this was a client, and she said, Kelly's demeanor is amazing. She's empathetic and non-judgmental. Unlike some other dietitians, works with you at your pace. And second, she just knows so much about food and supplements to ensure that your diet is healthy and balanced to maximize your results. I recommend Kelly. Now, one thing to pull out of this testimonial is I do know a lot about food, but I also know after coaching clients, thousands of clients over the last 12, 13 years, that it's not always what we're eating. It might be what's eating us. And stress is a big player. I think stress is the biggest driver of ill health. Maybe second to that, toxins in our environment. And then third is our food system. But as a dietitian, of course, I'm going to talk to you about food, but I'm also going to be talking about the full picture of what might be leading you to certain decisions, as well as I do believe in supplements. When I started my private practice, 13 years ago, I thought I'll help clients eat more whole real food and that'll cover the bases. But with modern life and autoimmune disease, I can see how helpful certain supplements can help fill nutrient gaps or propel labs in the right direction. So stay tuned. I have a lot of little nuggets for us along here, but I just want to talk about estrogen, that beautiful hormone that gets the most attention, that gives us our curves to our body right around when we hit puberty, to our adulthood and more. So our estrogen should move. It is most balanced around age 25. These are very fertile years. And as we get closer to this age 50, closer to menopause, it starts to drop off significantly. Now, perimenopause is the beginning of shifting hormones before our menopause um, label. And menopause itself is 1 day. So overall, the point of today's slide is our estrogen will shift through the decades, and there are things that can actually increase this menopause, this shift in younger years. Some of those things can be excessive smoking, excessive drinking. It can also be excessive caffeine or over exercising. Relating to myself personally, it can also be autoimmune disease, type 1 diabetes, especially an autoimmune condition known as Hashimoto's, that can make people go into menopause at a younger age. In America as well, menopause is happening in women in a younger age than other countries. So again, that's kind of bringing back to that conversation of what I've already started to touch on is stress. So let's go further, a little more information on the timeline of our hormones. I talked about puberty. It's right around age 12. Premenopause is the window before menopause. So it's overlapping quite a few of these, including that puberty. It's also including that perimenopause. Now, premenopause, perimenopause, they look like very similar words, but they are different. Perimenopause is basically reverse puberty. That's when our hormones are starting to track down. The average age is mid 30s to late 40s, and this period of time can be 8 to 10 years long. Some women might have no symptoms. Some women might struggle the entire 10 years. But in today's presentation, I want to tell you, you don't have to. And there's things we can do for our health, for our hormones, but overall for longevity and our overall well-being. I also wanted to point out that our first sign of hormone imbalance based off research of over 2,000 women was notified to be at age 36. So if you look back, if you're older than age 36, maybe did you notice any type of symptoms of hormone imbalance? I'll get into those symptoms here real quick soon. But I also wanted to mention in perimenopause. So more and more people are going to their gynecologist, to their doctor, and they're saying, am I in perimenopause? If you're over the age 35, there's a fair chance you are, but you can be in early or late. So early perimenopause is if your cycle's still within 7 days of what it should be. Late perimenopause is if your cycle is fluctuating so much and it's off by more than 60 days. So a little food for thought if that's a detail that you would like to hold on to or remember. So menopause itself, some women don't know, it's literally one day. Menopause is the day after you haven't had a cycle for 12 months. It is one day, and the following day after that, you're postmenopausal. So that's something to clarify as well. And let's further move on. Now, I have a lot of information here. I do not expect you to read it, but my takeaway is our ovaries, which our ovaries are producing estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone, are not the only thing at play with our hormonal health. Our adrenals, these tiny little organs on top of our kidneys, they're producing cortisol and DHEA. DHEA can also be responsible for producing testosterone and estrogen, and testosterone is produced in women. And it's important that our adrenals are in good health, good shape, so that can actually happen. And then last but not least, as we age, and especially as our estrogen drops, we become more insulin resistant, diabetic or not. And then last but not least, I have on here is T3. T3 is the active form of thyroid hormone. Our thyroid can very much fluctuate in menopause, perimenopause. And also, it's important that we get a full thyroid panel annually to understand the health of our thyroid. I have a lot of clients to come to me and they'll want to do a functional lab test I use, usually the Dutch Plus, and I'll talk about that later in our presentation. I'll use the Dutch Plus and they'll say, my hormones feel so out of balance. And we'll do the Dutch Plus and things don't look too off. But then all of a sudden, we actually do a full thyroid panel, and that's where things are in balance. So, symptoms of hormone imbalance can very much be low thyroid. So, a little food for thought. All right. So root causes of hormone imbalance versus what's really going wrong. So things you might be feeling is change in your mood, your sex drive, your sleep, your bowel habits, overall kind of your vulnerability, feeling low self-esteem more than you typically may have, especially brain fog. That's one of the top things I hear most often. Irregular periods, that might be obvious. Headaches. Did you know that headaches are very much related to our cycle and can very much be related to perimenopause? I have had two recent clients who are in perimenopause and all of a sudden they get migraines. Migraines can completely destroy our quality of life. They can be really hard. I do have a functional lab that I don't use on all of my clients by any means, but if you're someone with migraines, a good lab is my MRT test. MRT is a food sensitivity test that actually was designed for those with migraines and is a different test than like a standard IgG sensitivity test. It's going to look at IgG, and I might be talking a different language, but it's going to look at that sensitivity marker, but it's also going to be measuring cytokines to ingredients. Now, this MRT test is 180 food and chemicals, and it can be very helpful if you have migraines, especially related to perimenopause. So I just wanted to put that information in your toolkit in case that's something that you need to invest in to overall help your needs. Heart palpitations, exhaustion, that's also a very common symptom and cause of hormone imbalance, and dryness. But what's really going on? So these symptoms might be expressing themselves because our adrenals have just had a lot for the last few decades. Maybe we have always been burning our wick at both ends. Maybe we've always been that one driving our career path or getting those great grades or doing all the things for our kids or this, that, and the other. And I'm not saying those things are wrong, but it's important that we really recognize in this season of our life to take care of our stress, to carve out time to slow down and identify when we feel like we might get into burnout or we might be triggered by something. For example, I had a really good call with a handful of clients this week, but I knew I had a lot to do. I'm switching all the software in my business, and I'm like, I really need to watch all these tutorials on how I can best use my software. But I was sensing burnout. I've been just burning my wick at both ends. We've been traveling a lot. And I was like, I don't care. I need to take that hour on Monday when the kids are at school just to walk outside. And and I think I've gotten that with age. And I'm telling you with this slide to really tune into your intuition and identify what do you need and where can you slow down and carve out time to slow down, to be still, to be calm, to relax. Other things at play is blood sugar movement. As we age with our estrogen dropping, we become very insulin resistant. So there are things we can do to accommodate that, but it's important to know. Our gut health completely changes with our dropping hormones, from food sensitivities to lower gut diversity to leaky gut to constipation, as we noted over here, diarrhea, bloat. Oh, I hear bloating all the time from my clients, and maybe you can relate to that too. And it has a lot to do with your estrogen. Detox pathways. So as our ovaries start to go into retirement, our body's going to start to produce chemicals from our brains, FSH and LH, to tell that ovary produce more eggs. With that communication, our detox pathways can get more taxed. We need to support the liver to metabolize all that estrogen, progesterone, and all the things. But also, it's more important than ever that we are very aware of chemicals in our environment and what good practices we can take on to support the detox pathways. Sleep, maybe that's something that's showing up. I know it's listed over there, but also sleep is such a player because progesterone is that chill pill, is that chill hormone, helping us with that sound sleep and calm state. So again, estrogen's dropping, progesterone's dropping. Usually progesterone drops first. So if someone's interested in hormone replacement therapy, progesterone's usually the first medication given. Sometimes they're just given out of the gate both together. But if sleep's a really big problem, progesterone might be a good solution. What's also going on is diet or nutrient deficiencies, and also these toxins, these endotoxins, these plastics, these phyto, or excuse me, not phytoestrogens, but xenoestrogens are in our system and causing dysregulation of that progesterone estrogen relationship. We want those two hormones on a balanced teeter-totter, not tilting one way or the other. So if I were to ask you if I had a live audience for this recording, is perimenopause diagnosed with a lab? What do you think? You have a 50-50 chance to say yes or no. Well, I'll tell you the answer is no. Perimenopause is not diagnosed with a lab, it's actually diagnosed with symptoms. And when doctors are giving medication, yes, if you're going to a functional practitioner, they might be looking at a Dutch test, but for the most part, doctors are prescribing HRT just based off the symptoms. And if you're given HRT, that medication might need to be tinkered in doses on days you take it, again, based on symptoms. So it's kind of wild. In 2024, 2025, we're given medication based off how we feel. I hope we're all really in tune with our intuition. But the research on women's health, hormone health has a long way to go. But I do really encourage, if you want to understand your unique needs, the Dutch test can be a really good thing to try out. So, as estrogen and progesterone are declining, I've said some of these things, but I'm just going to groom over this again. There's a lot of things at play. While we might be working out the same way, eating the same way, life feels the same way, on the inside, it absolutely is not. I have this marked up over here, 40%. In perimenopause, women are at risk by 40% to be diagnosed with anxiety and depression. Now, great news is in 2022, big universities are coming in with great research. And in 2022, from the University of Cambridge, it's recommended that women are prescribed estrogen. They are prescribed estrogen rather than an antidepressant for anxiety and depression. Now, that estrogen is getting to the root of the problem. It's getting to the root of depleted hormones to support our mental health. The brain is very much connected to our hormones. And as our estrogen and progesterone decline, our risk for so many things go up. So it's not just about the weight loss. I'm providing today's presentation because, yes, I want you to feel confident and great in your skin, but I'm really providing this because I care about your bones. I care about your brain. I care about your longevity, your energy, so much more. So as these hormones drop, there's a big play at our mood, our anxiety, memory, panic attacks, loss in interest in things, irritability. I have mood swings and low mood on here, but they can be one and the same. Reduced self-esteem, brain fog, the plaque, the calcium, the things building up in our brain need more support. Low sex drive, hot flashes. Hot flashes can very much be related to that drop in estrogen, but they can also very much be related to blood sugar instability. And you might think, well, Kelly, I don't have type 1 diabetes or I don't have diabetes. When we age, as our hormones drop, we become more insulin resistant. And you might not have these diabetic range labs when you go do an annual physical, but your blood sugars are likely moving on a daily basis. Um, Also, something I haven't mentioned yet, in perimenopause, we are at an increased risk of autoimmune disease and more insulin resistance, which is something I had mentioned. I met with a client yesterday and I was like, remind me, when were you diagnosed with type 1? And she was diagnosed at age 42. She was in perimenopause, and that's when she was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. And she's like, I'm just not used to doing, living, eating, having a lifestyle that accommodates this disease that I've not had for very long. But in perimenopause, autoimmune diseases can show up. And if we have one autoimmune disease, out of the gate, we're at risk for more, but in the season of life, we're even at bigger risk for more. So this comes down to the bigger risk in autoimmune disease is a few things, but one is when we go into perimenopause, as these good old hormones drop, we become more inflamed. But number two, our gut becomes more leaky, our gut becomes more impaired. So if we support our stress, if we support our inflammation, if we support our gut health, we can turn all these stats around. Um, More things that are worth mentioning. I mentioned headaches already. Urinary urgency. If you're like, oh gosh, all of a sudden I have to use the restroom. Maybe it's like, oh, when I have a glass of wine, I have to go to the bathroom like 5 times out of the gate. It's really a giant change in your estrogen. But urinary urgencies, of course, you can do some physical therapy for pelvic floor strengthening, but really it's about supporting that estrogen level. Let's move on. So some conventional treatments for this, and I don't think conventional is wrong, but I think it's got its place, but it's also more important that we are aware of other solutions that are more modern and more fitting, that we don't have these strong symptoms for 8 to 10 years. But antidepressants can be used for our mood. There's so much involved in the brain through the season of life. And antidepressants can also be used for hot flashes. Birth control, some women I work with, they're like, I'm just bleeding so many days of the month and it's just exhausting. It's completely impairing the quality of life. And birth control can be used there to help figure things out, balance things out, and help a woman live some sort of normalcy. But overall, birth control, I would say, it might not be fun to hear, is some form of a band-aid. And estrogen therapy, especially estriol for the vagina, can be used for dryness. These are more conventional things, but actually going to the root of the problem that somewhat I've already alluded to can be more helpful. So maybe some things are used in combination, but again, I have some more resources here coming up. Overall, I just want to make sure I point out to keep aging. Aging's a good thing and it shouldn't be feared. When we age, we're moving in the right direction and it's worth celebrating daily. Solutions are also within our fingertips, they're within our control. So let me talk about these three core strategies for perimenopause, for longevity, for hormone health, for holistic living. And that is give yourself grace. Give yourself grace, slow down, protect that stress, metabolize that stress, protect your cortisol levels. Now, I don't think we all have depleted cortisol. I don't believe we all have high cortisol, but in this season of life, our cortisol often becomes dysregulated. So I'll have a little more visuals to help explain that here coming up. Second pillar, all about the blood sugar. Again, maybe you have type 1 diabetes like myself. Maybe you're noticing that your daily insulin needs to go up slightly as each year you become older. But no matter what, we are becoming more insulin resistant with the drop of estrogen, and there's things we can do to be more insulin sensitive. So, if you know me at all, you know I love my cleanse with Kelly. It's something I do 4 times a year with the seasons of the year. Now, this cleanse supports the liver, but it also supports insulin sensitivity because it's also supporting the gut and it's also supporting inflammation. There's strategies we can do like a cleanse. There's strategies we can do like modifying our macronutrients, our protein, carbohydrates, and fat. There are things we can do by really nurturing our sleep, which is kind of pillar number one, but sleep also supports blood sugar and so much more. So I'll get into more of those tips and tricks. And then our third strategy, our third pillar here is resources. Now, with our resources, I always want to lead with lifestyle, but there are tools that are becoming more available to women in perimenopause for perimenopause. So I just want to help provide that education so you can best utilize modern instruments, if I will. So, pillar number one, strategy number one, chill, support that cortisol, coddle it. Now, I put hearts by my favorite things here, but they're all important if they're up on this slide. Number one, sleep. If we are sleep deprived, we are likely to be 30% more anxious. If we are sleep deprived, we are likely to have more hormone imbalance. If we're sleep deprived, we are likely to be more insulin resistant, almost to the level of someone with type 2 diabetes. But you might say, well, Kelly, I'm doing all I can with sleep. What the heck? There are things you can do. One, have an examination of your hormone levels. See if that estrogen and progesterone are out of balance by looking at the metabolites, which can be done with a Dutch plus test, to see if those are out of balance. And maybe you need progesterone, but maybe you don't want to use hormone replacement therapy. Maybe you don't have the ability to do those tests and those examinations just yet. You can right away utilize some really good supplements for sleep. I have a lot of women that come to me, and I have a lot of women in menopause and those going through perimenopause. And I have two supplements I like a lot. I like Insomnitol from Designs for Health, and I also like Pure Encapsulation's Best Rest. Those both are blends that help support the brain waves, slow the thoughts down, support stress, also support the quality of sleep with low doses of melatonin, and also has some B vitamins. Again, that will also support inflammation and stress. So I have supplements. If you fall into this category and you want to learn more, just send me a message and I can help talk you through that. Let's move on over to the left, routines. Routines are grounding for the brain. Routines help us feel safe. Routines help us find unlocked time. You know, time is often something in perimenopause in this time of our life that we don't have a lot of. We usually are far in our career. We usually have very busy kids, and then we have parents that we're starting to take care of as well. Find little routines that can be anchors for your day to help you move along in the best way. And begin with night and morning. A good morning routine starts at night. So start in the evening. And let's come on over to the left. Let's get vulnerable. Let's speak and outline and advocate our boundaries. If something's not a no, it's a hell yes. Um, or excuse me, if it's not a hell yes, it's a no. I said that backwards, but it's probably one of the most important things to take away. Start to scale everything on if it's not a no. If it's not a hell yes, it's a no. Now I'm getting it mixed up. So there we go. Moving down more, you can unlock your internal pharmacy when you feel joy. You can unlock your internal pharmacy with laughter, with doing things you love, being with people you love. So make sure you're not overlooking that. Don't get too hyper focused on these health strategies. Make sure you're still having fun and you're not striving for perfection. I had a client this week, and our whole session was literally focused on planning pleasure. So if you love your wine, if you love your coffee, if you love certain treats, I don't want you to restrict them. I don't want you to white knuckle through it. I want you to plan those in a healthy way for you to overall optimize your health, but still have fun, still have pleasure. Overall, lead with lifestyle, identify systems. What do I mean by systems? We all can have different ways of systems. And I hope to very soon create a presentation on what symptoms that we can all organize for ourselves. But that might be my system on Friday is I write out the week for the following week in my planner right here on my desk. I also think about what meals I want to kind of forecast for next week and what groceries to get this weekend. So that's just a little system, but it helps me be efficient. It helps me make healthy food an obvious choice. It helps set me up for success. And that's just like one example, but there's many of systems we can have. Maybe it's putting your workouts in your calendar and protecting it like an important meeting, and so much more. So lead with lifestyle, support your cortisol, Follow these tips I've already provided, but also let's lean into having some form of a spiritual practice. Having some form of spiritual practice, let that be prayer, let that be community of some form, let that be meditation, can really support our cortisol. I do love me the 5 minute journal. If that's not something you've looked at, have a look. That might be a gift for yourself. That can be one thing that really helps slow down stress, metabolize stress, helps your brain be trained for gratitude. Furthermore, we can exercise smarter. More exercise is not better. We actually might need less. We're more inflamed as we age, so we don't want to keep driving that exercise, that muscle breakdown day after day after day. We need rest days and we need to exercise smarter, lift heavy weights, walk, maybe walk with a weighted backpack. I love that. Maybe you can too. Look into it. Also, this is a season of life where we really need to supplement strategically. And this is something that I'm very trained on. I've taken a lot of continuing education hours. So if you are not on any supplements or if you're just taking something willy-nilly, send me an email. I can help you along to identify what your unique needs are. But we need to support inflammation, we need to support our detox pathways, and we need to support our gut and insulin sensitivity. And last but not least, in this time of our life, we're not just counting calories. We need to lead with nutrition, nutrition over calories. And there's so much power in protein. When you look at how much protein you're eating in a day, are you eating enough per meal? When you look at how much protein you're eating per meal, is the total grams of that protein higher than carbohydrates? If it is, that can be very helpful in supporting blood sugar regulation, muscle mass, hormone balance, cortisol levels, and more. So, nutrition over calories. Protein is powerful. Don't forget your fiber, but also be aware of how food makes you feel. As we go into perimenopause, the estrogen's dropping, and we're at risk of a bigger risk of leaky gut, lower gut diversity, lower enzyme activity, so more bloating. So it's so important that we are aware of how food makes us feel. And if it's something that we're sensitive to, or if it's a meal we need a digestive enzyme, can make a big difference. So lead with lifestyle, protect your cortisol. And I'm talking about these food sensitivities and digestion because if we're not digesting something well, cortisol is going up. It causes an immune response. That might be something that we all may not know or think about. Now, number two, we're talking about blood sugars now, and here's just some symptoms and signs of insulin resistance. Maybe your conventional labs, your vitamin D is low, cholesterol's high, triglycerides high, maybe your fasting blood sugar is high. Those are all labs that I can quickly see there might be some insulin resistance going on here. But then you can also think about, okay, where are you carrying your weight? Is your weight in your midsection? What about going from one meal to the next? Do you get hangry? What could that be? Could it be low blood sugar? After a meal, do you get really tired? Could that be high blood sugar? Usually low blood sugars come from high blood sugar. It's a little chicken and egg process. And again, you don't have to have type 1 diabetes, type 2 diabetes, pre-diabetes to have moving blood sugars. Now, this time in our lives, it's so important to eat with intention of blood sugar control. Also, those 2 a.m. wake ups, that's a big sign of blood sugars dropping. So let's talk about more tips here. Oh, before I forget, I'll be providing a link to this presentation in the video recording, and you can just screen grab with your phone this QR code to get this awesome handout I have. All right, moving on. So let's get more sensitive. Let's get more insulin sensitive out of the gate. Let's do Cleanse with Kelly in some shape or form. This is a program that supports the liver, that supports blood sugar management, but also holistically on a daily basis. How is your digestion? Are you going to the bathroom every day? If you're not, let's have a session. Also, if you're not, think about, are you drinking enough fiber? Excuse me, drinking enough water, eating enough fiber? Are you eating foods that you're sensitive to? Um, and are you eating enough whole real food? And I guess fourth, or excuse me, fifth, is are you actually sitting down when you eat your meals? It is so easy to be standing while you're packing the lunches or on the go or eating in the car or on the way to carpool or this, that, and the other. Really optimize your digestion because when digestion off, that creates inflammation and insulin resistance. So there's number one, and there's things you can do. Of course, you can do a stool test, you can have a nutrition coaching call with a functional dietitian or me. But you can also take things like targeted probiotics. You can take quality fiber powders. You can do some functional labs to understand food sensitivities or leaky gut presence, and so much more. So, along with insulin sensitivity, we always want to make sure we're hydrated. I have two drinks here in front of me because when we're hydrated, our hormones work better, including our insulin. We also want to make sure we're diversifying our diet. The average American eats the same 15 foods each week, and we want to mainly reach for, or more so reach for, 30 different ingredients. These can be herbs, they can be spices, they can be rotating your fruits, your vegetables, your protein sources, your seeds, your nuts. Just really think, okay, when I go grocery shopping, how can I change up what I'm buying each time you go each week for the most part? And then let's become more insulin sensitive with certain things with our diet. Again, bring that protein up, bring carbohydrates down, but don't forego carbs rich in fiber, like cruciferous vegetables, like berries. I'm thinking peaches. I'm thinking my seeds as well. Those, they're not very high in carbohydrates, but flax seeds, chia seeds. Um, I love steel cut oats that are certified gluten-free as well. So you can adjust your macronutrients, you can optimize your protein, and then every time you sit down to your meal, eat your protein first. Eating your protein first can help that insulin marry up to your food, to your meal best, and cover your blood sugar management for that meal. Research shows for people without diabetes, when you eat your protein first, you can have better blood sugar levels by 20% after the meal, postprandial blood sugars. So, eating protein first, there's an art to eating and no naked carbs. So, what do I mean by that? I'll just spell this out slightly. So let's say you're someone who loves to work out early in the morning. You're like, well, I don't like working out on an empty stomach, so I grab a banana out the door and I go. That banana is going to spike your blood sugar before your workout and actually could deplete your workout. So with that banana, you want a little bit of protein or carbohydrates. For my clients, I really like something quick and convenient, and that's nice and portion controlled, especially of type 1 diabetes. So you always know what to expect of that specific carbohydrate will do or carbohydrate combo to do for the workout. But I love like mini bar Lara bars. I like mini Aloha bars. So I like those bars because they have fiber, fat, and protein and carbohydrate all bundled together. Although it is not whole real food, they're coming from whole food ingredients, but it goes really well. I also like fasted workouts for certain people. So think that through. Insulin sensitive, don't overdo caffeine and phytoestrogens like organic tofu, flax seeds can be very helpful in balancing that estrogen progesterone relationship. So here's a client testimonial. I just wanted to mention it because there's a story to depict from here. I came to Kelly hoping to lean out and improve my hormones. I crafted a plan for her that was doable and sustainable, helping her build new habits. Her body responded positively and her thyroid antibodies improved. And I've noticed significant changes both physically and mentally. So why I put this testimonial here is because this client came to me. She's like, my hormones are so out of balance. But as we got further into a session or two, I really identified, yes, there's things we can do to support your hormones. We can always lead with lifestyle. And when we support our hormones, we're supporting a lot of other things. But the bigger player, the bigger fire, the bigger problem, the looser screw, the weakest link was our thyroid health. And there's things that we needed to specifically take care of to support our thyroid, which therefore supported our hormones. And thyroid symptoms can look a lot like hormone symptoms. So I wanted to point that out. So our third strategy, so we talked about cortisol, we talked about blood sugar management, and now's the time to talk about modern resources. So I'm just going to recap a little bit here because I want to lead with lifestyle. You want to support your sleep strategies, your setup, dark room, cold room, earplugs, eye mask, mouth guard, mouth tape, whatever you need, get it done, get that quality sleep. And then talk about hydration. It is so essential we hydrate properly. I'm going to actually take a sip talking so quickly. We want to hydrate properly, but it's more important than ever, honestly, to have electrolytes. Electrolytes are very helpful and nourishing to the cell to hydrate better, but it's also really good for those adrenals or cortisol levels and so forth. So, sleep, hydration, nutrition over calories. Optimize your protein, seek out that fiber to help extract that estrogen dominance that we all may get, especially from plastics in our environment. I haven't mentioned this yet, but I should have. Make sure you step outside and get in nature as much as possible. Nature is healing. With your training, train smarter, not more. Strength train, walk, and be intentional on rest days. And then further down, have some sort of spiritual practice and supplement strategically. Let that be a good fish oil, let that be turmeric for the inflammation. And you don't want to be on turmeric or these things all day, every day. You want to rotate things. But certainly highly consider a cleanse. It is so important that we are supporting the liver, our detox pathways as our hormones start to shift, especially when that estrogen gets a little bit more dominant. We want to help and halt that as much as possible. Now, one last thing that's kind of high level, and then I'll get into two more very strategic areas. Endocrine disruptors. Just be aware of toxins in your environment, toxins you're putting on your skin, toxins on your food. Opt for organic. Remove all the scented, car fresheners, plug-ins, etc. And if you want to scent something, make sure it's with essential oils. That is a healthy, natural sensation, chemical coming into our senses, versus anything that's chemically made. So I'm thinking of the candles. I'm thinking of Bath and Body Works hand soap and body lotion. Think about the phthalate-free products that you can easily find on Thrive Market, Whole Foods, Amazon, or even just Google. You can find a quick list. Now, HRT, hormone replacement therapy. In the early 2000s, there was a lot of research on hormone replacement therapy. And the media took that data and ran with it, but in a misleading, non-factual way. They were scaring everyone that hormone replacement therapy was causing cancer. I have a few more slides coming up that can help spell out this a little more, but just know things on hormone replacement therapy are completely having a new revelation, and they can be incredibly helpful and protecting our bones and protecting our brains and optimizing our gut, optimizing our mood, the mental health, the depression, the brain fog, and so much more. And then let's come down to GLPs. So maybe you've heard of Ozempic. I feel like that's the most commonly known medication. And as someone with type 1 diabetes, we might be on Ozempic out of the gate because we don't produce insulin, but we also don't produce other hormones, including our satiety hormone, amylin. And Ozempic can help replace or mimic that. But also, Ozempics and GLP-1 medications are helping women in perimenopause with the insulin resistance, the metabolic changes, including higher cholesterol, inflammation, and blood sugar dysregulation, and more. But it's also helping with cravings, and it's also helping with food noise, portion control, lean body mass. No matter what, if we age, the goal is not to continue to gain weight, because gaining weight is not healthy for the body. So these medications are now being purposed for perimenopause. You don't need to be obese to use these. So just know that. Don't use it as a quick fix. Don't use it as a shortcut. Continue to lead with lifestyle, but know that it's a tool. And then I have this word down here, calorie. Maybe you've heard of calorie, but this is an extract from New Zealand that works in the same biological pathway as those medications. And it's something I have a lot of clients on. And I have a slide on calocarb. I thought it was next, so forgive me. I jumped the gun here. But overall, here's a research study just from 2019, reiterating that the research on the women's health trial from early 2000s was not described accurately, and that all of the fears of strokes and blood clots and cancer were miscued. And this is a really good visual from Dr. Carrie Jones. I actually pulled it from her recent presentation that, the media made us think we're all going to get cancer for using HRT, and they pulled everyone off of it. And obviously that was decades ago, but the reality was that the risks were quite low here for breast cancer, here for stroke, even lower. And that I just put in here to really lay it out there that we can't just, call MIDI, it's MIDI, and that's a place to get some HRT. We can't just call them and get results. You need to make sure that, or we need to make sure that our gut is optimized to metabolize those hormones, and also the liver's in a good place. If we are taking a bunch of hormones, we can actually drive, if our gut health is off, we can drive that estrogen down a cancerous pathway. So that's one reason I really like stool tests. It'll tell me how much beta glucuronidase is in somebody's results, and if they need, to consume more broccoli, which we all could consume more cruciferous vegetables, or need a supplement like DIM, or just really to overall optimize the gut health. But HRT is incredibly helpful, but it cannot replace foundational health habits. This is Precision's Analytical, they provide the Dutch test, and this is the test I use with clients. I like the Dutch Plus test because it also tell me the health of someone's adrenals and give me more information on thyroid optimization. But this hormone test is looking at metabolites, so it's looking at saliva and urine only. It is not looking at hormones in the blood. So doctors typically will say, "Oh, we'll measure your blood and do a lab," but these metabolites are telling such a bigger story and driving such a stronger direction of what solutions can be most helpful for your symptoms and needs. This is a visual of some of the results. It can completely look confusing to you, but this client out of the gate doesn't look too bad, but her estrogen was not in that perfect ratio, teeter-totter relationship with estrogen, and we want those level. But her estrogen was really low because her cortisol was so high waking up. So her energy was completely depleted. And while she thought she needed a bunch of hormone replacement therapy, she actually needed to support her cortisol levels. And there's certain supplements you can take at certain times of the day to bring this cortisol down and bring this cortisol up in the evening. Overall, her DHEA was also low. So this is a supplement that would be very fitting for this client here. And there's just a lot we can pull from this lab. Again, this is the Dutch Plus. This is a lab I could provide you at cost, but I would highly encourage a session to do an interpretation because it's a little confusing to do on your own. Overall, I have my liver cleanse, my Kelly cleanse with Kelly, my reset. My next one is going to be coming up November 11th, but I do this 4 times a year seasonally. So I am looking to change up the actual product here come the next year. But if you're interested in a cleanse, just let me know and I'll give you the information on when I'm running it as a group next. But you can also run this anytime you want. Another testimonial, this is just someone talking about how the cleanse is not that scary, it's not that hard, and it's easy to fit into a busy life. And then this is the Calo. So this is a private Facebook group I have. It costs nothing, but it's for people who want to try this GLP-1 supplement to support cravings, food noise, and weight loss. And I have a few resources in there to help highlight the importance of optimizing nutrition, but also a place for people to ask me questions. Another testimonial just summarizing how I work with clients and how I can help people with a great impact. And overall, my final thoughts in today's presentation is put yourself on the front burner and best manage stress that you can. It is so important for our hormone balance, our longevity, our quality of life, and so much more. Protect your blood sugars with diet, supplement, lifestyle. And at the end of the day, hopefully you found some education and new information in today's chat that you can better advocate your needs. So overall, don't underestimate the small and large decisions you make on a daily basis. Thank you for joining me. I'm going to stop our recording now. And if you have any questions after watching this, feel free to email me and take care.